Hey, how y'all doing out there? How y'all feel? Remember, an educated public cannot be controlled. Learn to be active. The views and events expressed here are totally whacked and are not necessarily the views of anyone. ¿Cómo estás? Bien, bien, bien. ¿Podemos ayudarnos más? Sí se puede. And don't take my word for it. Look that mess up, please, for your own benefit. How y'all feel? Y'all feel good? Y'all feel good? Yo, suspended reality. So, yeah, it seems like we're in a post reality state. The State of the Union is a post reality. You know? I don't know. What are we going to do about it? You know? I don't know. You argue with people, they have alternative facts, they have their own reality, they have their own truth, and it seems like you can't reach them. I don't know. I don't have an answer. I don't have an answer. It's tough. Let's get into it and then we'll talk about it.
We learn a lesson. When murder becomes a proxy for debate, we fail ourselves and our compatriots. When murder becomes a call to action, we have lost our way. Therefore, we must see and condemn this pattern clearly and consistently. Otherwise, we risk letting intimidation and apathy rule. But if we refuse to understand its source and the incentives for how violence is wielded and by whom, fear will quicken the end of democracy. We cannot stop calling out what is wrong if we want to make it right. And that includes the increasing use of political violence, which is intimately tied to the rise of autocracy in every space. The murders of conservative activist Charlie Kirk last week and of former Minnesota Speaker Melissa Hortman and her husband earlier this summer are part of a horrific litany. Political violence has become a dangerous through line in our national life.
And you know, it's funny, the media doesn't cover that Portman and her husband. I mean, they covered it a bit for a few days when it happened, and then it just kind of went away. And then you know you've got Trump talking about all of the violence is coming from the left, and it's like that that was those were Democrats that was murdered earlier in the summer, and the dude had a long ass list of people that was on his list to take out, and it's like it even the way that whole thing played out was like it was by accident that it was foiled. The guy would have definitely got away with doing more if it hadn't happened the way it happened. It was an accident that they did like a wellness check, I want to say, something like that. And it just so happened the police was there. Then they showed up at the house, where the murder had already happened. But the suspect, you know, he ended up getting apprehended or whatever, but he was planning on going to other houses and doing more on his list. It was an accident. I mean, y'all look up that story. It's a crazy story. But anyways, you know, how can Trump say all of the violence is, coming from the left? Like, this is what I mean by suspended reality. I mean, uh, I don't know. I really don't know. I don't know what to say about that because it's just not true. Like, it's not true. And you've got all of these trolls online who's just, they love Trump so much that no matter what he says, they just go with it. And I understand. I understand if you're a fan or whatever, you support his politics or whatever, that's fine. But as far as deluding yourself and suspending reality to support. Why should you have to suspend reality to support someone? That's just insane. And that's going to make you crazy. You are crazy if you just accept what people tell you, regardless of what the facts are. And then when people give you facts, oh, that's fake news or whatever, or it's out of context or whatever, your little lines that you use over and over again, is you are crazy. I'm sorry.
But these heinous acts, driven by politics, cannot and should not be divorced from the other horrific instances of public violence we have become too familiar with these days. Mass shootings in our schools, places of worship, and public spaces are no longer singular events. To those who have studied world history, these tragedies portend a terrifying outcome. When murder is met with inaction or invective by our leaders, we learn a lesson. When murder becomes a proxy for debate, we fail ourselves and our compatriots. When murder becomes a call to action, we have lost our way. Therefore, we must see and condemn this pattern clearly and consistently. Otherwise, we risk letting intimidation and apathy rule. But if we refuse to understand its source and the incentives for how violence is wielded and by whom, fear will quicken the end of democracy. We cannot.
Yeah, I think that a lot of people, that end of democracy, like, it's supposed to sound scary or whatever, but I think that a lot of people aren't concerned about that. I think maybe they should be. That's up for debate. But then, how are we going to be be involved in the government, or can we have any influence over the government? That again, there goes an argument, because do we have any real influence in the government today? Most people want common sense policies on the left and the right, and we don't get them. And I think that that's part of the reason why we have so much partisan politics, and how we're, they just get us to fight with each other. We agree more than we disagree, but it doesn't matter at the end of the day, because neither side is getting what they want. So then they just lash out at each other, because that is what, the powers that be want us to do. The algorithms are making money off of all of this disunity and all of this fighting and, debate, if you will, quote unquote. They're making money off of this, and I think that's the biggest part of this. The media should be held accountable for the State of the Union. They just want to make money, and they don't care. There needs to be some journalistic integrity. There needs to be some moral position. You can make money and still be, still have moral character. It's like, I guess you can suspend your moral character and make more money, but how much is enough? How much money is enough? Like, well, is it reprehensible, to the harm that you're doing? Do you not care about the harm that you're doing?
All right, Lisa, thank you so much. And we are following breaking news in Minnesota, where the manhunt is now underway for the person who shot and killed a lawmaker and her husband. A second lawmaker and his wife were also shot The two separate shootings are said to be targeted political violence. Minnesota Governor Tim Walz says that former House Speaker Melissa Hortman and her husband were killed. State Senator John Hoffman and his wife were shot multiple times. They are out of surgery, but in serious condition. The two shooting locations were about 8 miles away from each other in Champlin and Brooklyn Park, that's just north of Minneapolis. Authorities say that the gunman attacked by knocking on the doors and asking the victims to come outside. The officers found a person who was dressed as a police officer at the door of Hortman's home. The suspect fired at the officers. Gunfire was exchanged and the suspect was able to escape. A list of other possible targets was retrieved from the suspect's car. Security resources have been dispatched to protect those people named on the list. The deputy director of the FBI says they are fully engaged on the ground, and in Minnesota, they're working in collaboration with local and state partners. And of course, we'll continue to follow the story. We will bring you.
So yeah, politically motivated Democrats killed Democratic lawmakers. And, you know, Trump is like, oh, it's all coming from the left. It's like, what evidence do you have to support what you're saying? That's what I was saying about the boat, the Venezuelan boat, drug traffickers or whatever. You know, they just tell us, hey, you know, they're drug traffickers and we blew them up. Okay, what evidence do you have to support that? You know, if usually when someone commits a crime, they have to put evidence up. You know, they collect the evidence. That way they can take them to to trial and prove that they had did something that was illegal or whatever. You know, if you blew up the boat, if then you just blew up all the evidence. What case do you have? You know, and then it's an extrajudicial killing off top. Even if it's true, you just straight up you didn't go through the process. And it's more and more of this stuff that we're just accepting because we just, we support the guy. We want America first or whatever. You know, we support his politics. So you're just willing to let him just walk all over all of the law, period. And, they say it's a nation of laws, law-abiding nation or whatever, and it's the laws that keep us together and keeps us to have a civil society or whatever, where this guy doesn't care about the law. And you guys are supporting that.
To have conducted.
A federal grand jury has indicted the man accused of shooting and killing the late former Speaker of the House, Melissa Hortman, and her husband as part of a larger plot to kill lawmakers. The indictment lists murder, stalking, and firearms charges against Vance Belter. The murder charges could carry the federal death penalty. Now, Belter is accused of going to the lawmakers' homes on June 14th, disguised as a police officer in a fake squad car with a manifesto of potential targets. Prosecutors say along with killing the Hortmans, Belter also seriously wounded State Senator John Hoffman and his wife, shooting them nearly 20 times combined, but they survived. Authorities say he also stopped at the homes of two other lawmakers, but they were not home.
The investigation has shown that Vance Belter had spent months investigating his targets. He had names. He had lists of names of people that he was interested in investigating, addresses, names of their family members. He appears to have conducted surveillance at least some of the houses.
After 40 hours on the run, Belter was captured in what authorities called the largest search for a suspect in Minnesota history.
These are the facts, okay? This is reality. We have to accept reality. If we want to be sane. What is your quality of life if you're not mentally healthy? What is the importance of mental health? Do we want the human race to continue?
Delta State University, with your false narrative, you need to proceed with caution because there will be consequences for this.
Hattiesburg, Mississippi attorney Vanessa Jones speaking out Tuesday as family of 21-year-old DeMartravian Trey Reed listened quietly in the Grenada church Reed attended. The freshman at Delta campus Monday, just hours after Reed was found, the university announced.
At this time, there's no evidence of foul play.
Reed's family outraged after Bolivar County Coroner Randolph Seals Jr. issued this statement, quote, based on the preliminary examination, we can confirm that the deceased did not fracture broken bones or inconsistent with an assault. At this time, there is no evidence to suggest the individual was physically attacked before his death, end quote. Attorney as DSU is leaving the Reed family in the dark.
We at this point, the family of Trey, and to tell them exactly what happened to their child that they entrusted to Delta State University.
Jones says the truth of what happened Monday should be easy to find.
Because if this young man was on the campus of Delta State University with all these cameras and all this modern technology, when he left his dorm room or entered that campus, there should be surveillance of all of his actions. And that's what we want.
They said there's no evidence of, what did he say? No physical aggression. What was the words they used? I mean, the dude is no longer alive and he was hanging from a tree. Like, there was definitely some physical altercation that happened.
In less than 24 hours, two men living in the state of Mississippi have been found dead hanging from a tree. The first one, DeMartravian Reed, better known as Trey, was a 21-year-old Black student who went to Delta State University. Delta State University police were made aware of his death at 7:05 a.m. on September 15th. His body was found near the pickleball court located on parts of his body. The police claimed that there was no foul play. In a statement by the coroner's office, Reed had no injuries that were, quote, consistent with an assault, end quote, but that the death took place on Sunday, September 14th. Delta State.
No injuries associated with the assault.
State University's police chief said during a news conference on speculating whether or not that was truly the cause of death. It should be noted that the coroner has not ruled on Reed's cause of death. His body will be sent to the Mississippi State Crime Lab for an autopsy. If this story wasn't disturbing enough, on the very same day, a 36-year-old white man named Corey Zukadis was also found hanged from a tree in Vicksburg, Mississippi at 1:30 p.m. According to Warren County Sheriff Martin Pace, his body was discovered in an area. Two was sent to the State Crime Lab for an autopsy. As of now, the police haven't stated any connection between the two deaths, but as these stories evolve,
it's like regardless, the stories are disturbing. You know, if let's say that people off themselves, you know, that's still very, very disturbing. You know, what is leading to this? I was just watching a story about IDF soldiers and the amount of self-unaliving that has been happening within their ranks, you know, and what is causing that? What is leading to that? A person has to be going through some serious pain, to do that to themselves. So then you want to look at society and ask the question, what is leading to this? What is causing this? What is the root cause of it? And what can we do about it? Okay? That's the reason why reality is important, because if you're just stuck in narratives, then you're never going to determine root causes, and you're never going to be able to fix these issues. I think that there is a segment of society who thinks that these things can never be fixed, and they don't have any, intention to even try, and that's fine. But those people should not be in charge of anything, because at the end of the day, we should try, even if it's impossible. How do we know it's impossible if we don't even try? So, and for you to get to the point where you can do something about a problem, then you have to diagnose it truthfully and honestly with real data, with real information, and then come to a conclusion of what the true causes are. And then after that, you have to come up with, something to stop that, for lack of better terminology. I'm trying to be careful about how I say these things, because I know that people like to twist what you say into something else. So simple, diagnose the problem and then do something about it. But you can't even get to that point if you can't even truthfully, honestly look at what is the problem or what's the cause of the problem. It says, listen, I've lived in Mississippi my entire 29 years. We had to put up a 500-pound steel bulletproof historical marker for Emmett Till at Grable Landing because it routinely got riddled with bullet holes from people shooting at it. And that was in 2019. For a marker commemorating a child murder victim, I need folks to quit acting like a lynching is some far off, unprecedented possibility in 2025. People could be blowing up this story. More information comes out and we'll see, how it leads. But regardless, you see, like, why would someone shoot at this plaque, And then, oh, it's not about race. It's not about race. Okay, well, then what the hell is it about then? What would someone have a problem with this? Why they got to shoot at it? Like, what are you accomplishing by doing that? It's not about race, though. It's about something other than race. We're not racist. Just the people that's talking about it. If we just stop talking about it, it'll go away.
You would prefer the human race to endure, right? You're hesitating.
Yeah, well,
yes.
I don't know. I would.
This is a long hesitation. This is a long hesitation.
There's so many questions implicit in this.
Should the human race survive?
Yes.
Okay.
But I also would I also would like us to radically solve these problems.
Right.
And transhumanism is this, the ideal was this radical transformation where an immortal body. And there's a critique of, let's say, the trans people in a sexual context, or I don't know.
You would prefer hesitating.
Yeah, well,
yes.
I don't know. I would
This is a long hesitation. This is a long hesitation.
There's so many questions implicit in
Should the
this.
human race survive?
Yes.
Okay.
But I also would I also would like us to radically solve these problems.
Right.
And so it's always, I don't know, transhumanism is this, the ideal was this radical transformation where your human natural body gets transformed into an immortal. The trans people in a sexual context, or I don't know.
You would prefer the human race to endure, right? You're hesitating.
Yeah, well,
Why did he hesitate so much with that question? It's a simple question. The simple answer, is yes. I mean, they've lived their life. I don't understand it. I really don't get it. Like, do you not have any children or grandchildren or whatever? Like, I don't understand this thinking at all. Like, yes, I would love for my children's children to freaking be here, and their children's children. Yes. The billionaire who fueled J.D. Vance's rapid rise to Trump VP spot. Vance's ties to Thiel began more than a decade ago. In 2011, Thiel gave a talk to Yale Law School where Vance was possibly the smartest person I'd ever met. Vance later wrote about that day. Peter Thiel in Silicon Valley founded the sudden rise of J.D. Vance. Peter Thiel is famous for co-founding PayPal and being the first outside investor in Facebook, as well as for co-founding Palantir Technologies and the venture capital firm Founders Fund. The tech mogul is amping up his apocalyptic rhetoric and adding a dangerous dose of extremism into the already fought culture ball. Since the nation's founding, Americans have sought to name the Antichrist, usually by pointing the finger at their political enemies. Yep. Let's read some comments. It says he does realize he's human, right, as well. The interviewer watching him stumble through his thoughts like, another comment says, how is he so inarticulate? One thing I'll say about that is that, people that actually think about what they're saying instead of just repeating talking points all the time tend to, hesitate and stutter. And it's because they're actually thinking through their thoughts, you know what I mean? Instead of regurgitating freaking slogans. And a lot of people regurgitate slogans. Smarter people, more intelligent people who have actually studied things tend to, pause and hesitate and stutter when they're speaking their mind about things. Just because you learn things doesn't mean your good perspective is correct or whatever. So I don't understand the attack on education anyways. Like, we're going backwards, bro. Like, we're moving in the, not like someone says they're progressive and they're like, oh, they're on the left or whatever. We don't want this progressive stuff or whatever. Like, on his face, to me, that doesn't make any sense at all. Like, whatever your political ideologies are, wouldn't you want things to improve for you and your family, for your society? Stuff like better infrastructure, like everyone benefits from that, right? Like, better pipes, building things, homes better, choosing how we build our cities, putting the life of humans in, in perspective, or in your mind, or, when you build something, you're thinking about how it's going to work or whatever, and the work-life balance of the people who use that stuff and stuff like that. Like, it doesn't really matter where you are politically. That is something you should be supporting. Like, the argument of where's the money going to come from? Okay, that's fair. That's a fair argument or whatever. But where are your priorities? You're okay with spending money on war? Where are the priorities? What is more important? That movie, They Live, this meme right here. Yeah, y'all should watch that. It says, I will never understand him having all that money and still looking like that. What does that mean? Another one, it says, Peter's filthy rich and still can't afford a durable skin suit. What does that mean? Another comment, I don't trust anybody who looks like they haven't seen the sun in years. What are all of these personal attacks like?
Transvestite is someone who changes their clothes and cross dresses, and a transsexual is someone where you change your penis into a vagina. And we can then debate how well those surgeries work. But we want more transformation than that. The critique is not that it's weird and unnatural. It's so pathetically little. And we want more than cross-dressing or changing your sex organs. We want you to be able to change your heart and change your mind and change your whole body. And then Orthodox Christianity, by the way, the critique Orthodox Christianity has of this is these things don't go far enough. Like that transhumanism is just changing your body, but you also need to transform your soul, and you need to transform your whole self. And
I generally agree with what I think is
transvestite is someone who changes
your belief that religion should be a friend to science and ideas of scientific progress. I think any idea of divine providence has to encompass the things that would have been unimaginable to our ancestors. But it still also seems like, the promise of Christianity in the end is you get the perfected body and the perfected soul through God's grace, and the person who tries to do it on their own with a bunch of character.
Well,
I don't know. That assumes a lot. I don't know. Where does it say that? Does it say that in the Bible somewhere about you having the perfect body or something like that? I don't remember that being in there. I used to be really into that stuff, and I don't remember that being in there. If someone knows where it says that, can you put that in the comments? Because I don't remember that. But regardless, that's missing the point completely, because what Peter Thiel was saying in that instance about you transforming your mind and your soul or whatever, that is the point. Okay. And I think that there's too much emphasis on what happens after you die anyways, because at the end of the day, we don't know what happens after you die. Someone can come and tell you, oh, for sure, this thing is what happens after you die. Again, I need evidence. You know what I'm saying? I'm sorry. I need evidence. I can't just go with that. I don't know. I don't know what happens after you die. And you don't either, because you haven't died. So I think it's too much emphasis on what happens after you die, and the emphasis should be on the your living life. Now, as far as your legacy, as far as what you leave, as far as what kind of life you lived while you was alive, you know, that those things are important. But living your whole life for after your death, I mean, you want to be righteous, you know. I get the part about like being judged after you die or whatever. That may just be a motivation to get people to try to do the right thing while they're alive. But there's a part of me that believes that part. You know, there's a part of me that really is moved by that idea of being judged after you die. But you know, the point is the way that you live, you know, and how you treat other people, so forth and so on. If you're treating people horribly to get something good after you die, like judgment or whatever, like God is going to be like, oh, you know, I see you did those horrible things, but you did those horrible things for me or whatever, or to please me or something. So I'm going to give you a break or something. And I don't think I can't. You can only have one or the other. You can't have both. You know, you don't do horrible things in your life. If God is saying don't do horrible things, and then God is saying it's okay to do horrible things as long as it's, you know, for the greater good of you're what God wants, like, that's crazy.
It's let's articulate this.
And you can have a heretical form of Christianity, right? That says something else.
I don't know. I think the word nature does not occur once in the Old Testament. And so
your belief that religion should be a friend to science, and
Wait, nature. Okay, he just struck me. Nature, nurture. Netter. Egyptians. Hold on, man. My brain just made my brain kind of go somewhere. He said they didn't say nature at all in the Old Testament. So what is his point? Like, what is he trying to say? Nature. He didn't say nature. I mean, that's a term that we use to describe the world, the natural environment. The Bible is very human-centric. I would agree with that. Definitely is that. Like, it's the perspective is humans. It's like God created the heavens and the earth. So if they say God created the heavens and the earth, that's mentioning nature, right? And it says that happened before God created man. But it seems like from the perspective of the Bible, you know, the most important event is the creation of man. And if humans are the ones who wrote this, then it would make sense for us to look at things from that perspective, you know, or to write it in that way. Anyways, let's move on.
You know, if you and there is a word in which the way I understand, the Judeo-Christian inspiration is it is about transcending nature. It is about overcoming things. And, and the closest thing you can say to nature is that people are fallen, and that's and that's true. But, there's some ways that with God's help, you are supposed to transcend that and overcome that.
Oh man, that's one of those things I completely and utterly disagree with, is that all men are born in sin. This is a baby coming out of the womb and you're telling me that it's born in sin? Like, no, I completely disagree with that premise. And when you have that way of thinking, that's what leads to a lot of atrocities that happen. Like colonizers coming and saying that, these savages, they don't know Christ, so I'm going to save them. That Eurocentric is a word that pops in my mind, but that's not good enough. What's the word I'm looking for? But it's not, it's egotistical. That's a much better word. I have a better idea of how you should live. And my idea of how you should live will benefit you better than the way you decided to live or whatever. I really dislike that idea of born in sin. If you don't get baptized or whatever, you're going to hell. Like, so these babies that were born, they didn't make it to their christening. They get to go to hell forever. Like, anyways, that's crazy to me.
Peter Thiel, the founder of Palantir and JD Vance's patron for his entire political career, is giving a 4-part lecture on the Antichrist in San Francisco. This being after he gave an interview with the New York Times saying Greta Thunberg was the Antichrist. The organization sponsoring this talk is Act 17, which stands for Acknowledging Christ in Technology. This is the Times edition, and 17 is this part where the Apostle Paul and some other Christians are in Greece, and they get invited to go off with like the Athenians, who are pagans, like they still believe in Zeus and stuff, up to this hill and talk to all the philosophers of Athens. And it's a really interesting, and it seems like Peter Thiel, the founder of Palantir and JD Vance's patron for his entire Act 17, the organization wants to do is see like the dialogue between Christians and tech people as that kind of event. But one of the things that Paul says to the Athenians on the hill is, "For as much then as we are the offspring of God, we ought not to think that the Godhead is like unto gold or silver or stone, graven by art and means device. I think that we ought not to think the Godhead is like silicone either. If you told St. Paul that you were or God through a computer owned by a rich man, he would ask once you into him what the computer was, and he's all about like eschewing the external signs, saying that it's about something inside of you. It's not about wealth. It's not about your fastidious observation of certain rights. But Act 17, the organization wants to do. It's not about how big a temple you make or like how pretty an idol you create. It is about what you believe inside, the way you treat other people. And since a lot of the Paul address treats others and itself. So it's like not about what Thiel thinks it's about. A lot of these texts are heavily allegorical in empire. And so a lot of the Paul stuff, righteousness. How do you look at a massive empire and say, hey, we're going to stand up to you. We're going to be a dissident movement. And Thiel reads the Bible and is like, I'm one of the Christians. I'm resisting. About how big a temple you make or like how pretty an idol you create. It is about what you believe in. Inside the way
he said, bro, is literally wrong. These technocrats of our times, man, there's no argument. There's no argument to this, bro. Like the Jeff Bezos types, the Mark Zuckerberg types, you know, the what is the guy, the Tesla owner? I don't know why I'm having brain fog now, but y'all know what I'm talking about. The George Soros types. Let's just say like the billionaires, but not just. I mean, you've got people who got money passed down to them, heirs or whatever, and they're kind of behind the scenes, and they don't, their names don't pop up as much. You can find them if you do Google searches, but what all stuff that they are involved in or have control over is going to be difficult to determine. You know, you have these shell companies and stuff like that, like dark money, and it's the whole point is for you to not be able to determine who's in charge or whatever, you know. And you know, we have these investment firms. Again, these are the bosses, okay? So, but who is driving those investment firms or whatever? Who is driving those people like Zuckerberg, Elon Musk, influencing those people? Okay, so man, I lost my train of thought. What was he saying? And earlier when I said about the born in sin, I mean, there's always a opportunity to be better. We're supposed to grow. We're supposed to grow until we die. You know what I mean? And growing is not all. It's not just physical. Okay, there's more to it, and you can always keep on growing. You know, if you haven't changed your mind on something, right, about things, think about when you was a teenager and what you thought about life or whatever. You know, think about when you was a preteen and how you thought about life. You know, and it's not about age. So that's kind of I probably shouldn't have mentioned that, but it's just to show the growth that you're capable of and what you should be striving for, you know, forever, for all of your days. You should be striving to grow, to improve, to be better, you know, because there's always room for improvement. And I think that that's what we're talking about when, in my defense of the born in sin thing, you know, that you should be trying to do better. Inspire others to be better. So, what did he say? Hold on.
Is see like the way you treat other people. And since a lot of the Paul letters are like addressed to spiritual communities, it's all.
Oh, he was talking about how he said that you are Rome. Yeah, and that's what rules the world. And so these government, that's what you have to understand. So then this is what I be trying to say all the time in the shows is like, you know, who controls your life more? Is it the laws of the government or is it your boss? Who has more impact over your life? Your boss tells you what time you have to get up in the morning. You know what I mean? What time is the best time for you to go to sleep at night? You know, your boss is where you give away your, you know, the majority, like your waking hours. You know, your boss determines what car you are able to drive, you know, where you live, you know, how nice your place is. Are you following me? Now that the power of that compared to the laws that the government passed and the police and, you know, that is secondary. That is secondary. I mean, you can argue about how the importance of infrastructure, because that just struck me, because government tends to do that, but privately, that was done privately historically. So it still tracks. These people are the ones that are really, controlling things. Now, they're not all bad people, they're just folks. But as far as to getting to the point of having such a large amount of wealth, you have to suspend certain amount of morality. There's no way that you can get there or keep it. So, I mean, what am I trying to say here? You don't want those people as the ones controlling things, because they're going to make decisions that benefit their way of thinking and their perspective. And you can't really blame them, because no one can get outside of their perspective. What you see or how you see, or from the direction that you see things, is how you see things. And there's no outside of that. You can try to expand it, but you can't get outside of it. So you're going to make decisions within that perspective. And some of these people, they live like in another universe, literally. Like literally, they're not in the same universe with the rest of us. So if they're making decisions about how we should live or how our life should be or whatever, they aren't going to be able to make decisions that benefit us, properly. It's not going to fit correctly. It's going to be off regardless, no matter how well intentioned they are.
Way the community during appeal of these biblical texts as political documents to me, not merely as like a spiritual kind of thing, is that they make that case and describe that sort of resistance to an empire. But Teal is the empire. And it also occurs to me that Teal is so invested in these parts of the Bible that are like cryptically prophesied. Look through the pages of the Bible, like there's 10 times as much stuff about love in there than about like these weird, host scary
of it. And that's the reason why I can't just like, I did when I was younger, but if you take the Bible into your heart, like the whole thing or whatever, it's going to leave you confused, because it is confusing. And men are fallible. Men are not perfect. When I say men in that sense, it means everybody, okay? Some people I hate having to explain that kind of stuff. That means everybody, okay? Damn, that made me forget what I was saying. Oh, I hate having to explain stuff like that. It's so ridiculous that we've gotten to this point where it's like that. But what was I saying?
Like, I'd encourage him or anybody else who is a Christian to go a page forward in the first epistle of John after the part where they're talking.
Oh, the confusion of the Bible, because it contradicts itself in different parts. And we're like, the Old Testament is so different from the New Testament, it's contradict. It contradicts itself constantly. And the reason why that is because people have written it, okay? So, and they take out what they don't want, and they, what do they call it? The canon. They take out what they don't agree with, and they leave other stuff, and the translations are a problem, to put it simply. And, if you wanted to bend something, a great place to do it would be within translation, especially when the people don't even know the other language, or it's a language that's no longer even being used. Like, so come on, that's I don't like to knock people's religions. grew up Christian and Muslim, well, Christian and then Muslim. And then I got to the point where I spiritual. I believe that it's a growth process, that you can grow right out of religion. That's how I feel. The religion is a box. It's a box. And you can only go so far within it. And to keep on growing, you have to get into a spirit. Religion is like, what? There's a meme that goes around where it's like religion is like, I don't know what it is, some kind of objects in the ocean. And then it says spirituality is the ocean. So it's not like you've left your religion, you've become more spiritual, and you can encompass more perspective, more understanding, and you can do more, you can be better to people, even better than you could within your religion, because you just stuck in dogmas, and you just get stuck in like routines, and there's always someone telling you what you're supposed to be doing, and that just leads into a group think where everyone is doing the same thing. And if they're not helping enough, there may be some of these groups that are, but there's a lot of them that aren't. And that's what I see. And I really have a problem with that. And community is great, and I need it. I've been thinking about going back to church just simply for the community, having a community, because you see these people regularly, you develop relationships with them, and everyone needs that as a human. So that is a good part of it.
Anyway, is worth listening to, even if you're not a Christian at all. They say, beloved, during a appeal of these biblical texts, let us love one another, for love is of God, and everyone that loved for God. And this is a world that we might live through him. Herein is love, not that we loved God, but that he loved us and sent his son to be the propitiation for our sins. Beloved, if God so loved us, we ought also to love one another. No man hath seen God at any time. If we love one another, God dwelleth in us, and his love is perfected.
No man seen God. I don't like the images. I really think that's a problem. That's one of the things I like about Islam, is that they don't have any images. And that is really important, because once you start getting images, then you got people that use that in a negative way. So just leave the images out. Yeah, God is love. I love that. That is great. And then the part about, if God is love, and you love God, then you should love each other. And why isn't this the message that we're hearing in our politics right now today? If this is such a Christian nation, so many Christians, and we're talking about euthanizing the homeless people. We're talking about genocide. We're talking about political violence, tribal violence, and so forth and so on. And I know that people look at it like, we can't fix all of this stuff. No, you can't, if you're looking at it like that. But what you can do is love your neighbor. It's not the love where you have to go and necessarily hug them every day. Although people like hugs, some people like hugs, some people don't, or whatever. I'm not that much of a hugger, I ain't gonna lie, but the importance of hugging is important, making connections and building community. So going on a tangent, but tolerating your neighbor is a form of love. Okay. uh, being patient with them, you know, even if you disagree with them, you know, that is your way of loving, okay? At the very minimum, tolerance is a extreme minimum. You know, we can go further and accept them the way that they are. Okay? You don't have to have political debates with them. You don't even have to have them over for dinner. You know, you don't have to do that. But you accept them as they are and see them as human and respect them because they're human. It's really simple. You know, you can go further than that. You can help them, you know, in the ways that they need it. Okay? You don't never have to agree politically or even lifestyle, you know. You don't have to agree with them, but you can help them. You can help them. And like truly helping people, because see, this is where there's a lot of confusion that comes in, because like people ask for money, right? You know, can you pay my rent or whatever? You pay my phone bill or whatever. You know, money is something that people need. I'm not gonna lie, and every now and then, you know, a little help on that end goes a long way. But you don't help them by like continuing to give them money or whatever, continuing to pay their rent or their phone bill or whatever it is, because now they are dependent on you. That is not helping them. Okay. Now, there's another end of the spectrum where people want to control others. That's not helping them either. So if you want to completely dominate what they do, you know, that's not helping them. You know, helping them is somewhere in the middle where, you know, it might be not paying that phone bill or not paying that rent when they ask. Allowing someone to make mistakes. That might be helping them. But the thing is, it's complex. It's intricate. So you have to dig through the details if you really want, if you know, to you know what that person likes. And it's like a long process, you know, and y'all been together a long time and you'll still be learning. You'll still learn stuff. So being able to help somebody, you have to be able to be willing to take the time to dig through the details of how you can actually do that. And it's different in every, you know, every situation, in every scenario, and each time. So if you love them, then you are willing to give the time to figure out how to help them. You know, a lot of times it's little things. A lot of times it's really small things. And you can. That's the thing. There's balance with everything. And you have responsibilities and things that you have to take care of. So you have to keep those in mind, you know, and loving yourself is important, and loving your, you know, who's ever closest to you, that's important. And so you got to take care of that, you know, first. We got plenty of love to pass around, bro. There's plenty of it. There's no limit. It's infinite. So let's pass it around a little bit. Let's share it. What's going on?
I think the issue is that you guys are saying that it mostly happens on the left. No statistic, no Defamation League, the FBI, no government statistic shows what you're saying. It's showing the exact opposite, that 60 to 75% of the political violence is committed by people on the right. But yet you, the president, the vice president, the attorney general of the United States are giving false information to the American people that it only happens on the left and that it is
false information about Republicans. You guys have called.
But there's no facts to what you're saying.
Kamala Harris called us fascists while she was running president.
The president called her fascist as well.
And you and the media have amplified that. You all have done.
Have evidence of that.
Well, they said on the bullets, there was fascist commentary on the bullets, pro-transgender commentary on the bullets. Don't give me the bullshit that
That could very well be so, but we don't know if that's true right now.
It was a transgender. It was a tranny. Come on, let's be honest about this.
That's disrespectful.
Republicans vote to table.
I really don't care because there are a lot of trannies out there that want me dead because I'm a rape victim who wants privacy in the bathroom. The trannies can F off. I don't care. They want to kill me and they're not going to.
How would you like it if someone called you out of your name? If they called you a B word or any of that, how would you feel?
These people are calling. They are the most egregious, most violent people on earth. They are mentally ill and should be in a straight jacket with a hard steel.
Comments. It says, "Oh, the transgender person, the one who raped Nancy Mace." A really good point, because she's all like, "I'm going to the restroom and I was a sexual assault victim." Just tell the truth. You just don't like these people. They make you uncomfortable. Say it with your chest. Comments that says, "Shout out to Don Lemon doing the work we need to do in a time like this." I think some more journalism is definitely, and it's an attack on journalism big time. And I would not be surprised because in other countries, I'm not gonna say who they are, journalists tend to get offed, and there's multiple places that do that. And I wouldn't be surprised if we saw that coming here. I don't want to see that, but in the direction that we're going in, because, well, they can arrest them. See what they did to, I'm having brain fog with names today. To get this, who am I thinking of? I'm thinking of, those email links, Wikipedia, not Wikipedia, what am I trying to say? Freak, they locked the dude up. Anyways, it's gonna come to me.
You guys,
let's read some more comments. More of this. Mainstream news organizations need to get the F together. It's monopolized. It's happening more and more. I was just reading a story about it. Who is it? Freaking. See, there I go with the names again. Two big companies merging. So it's happening even more. Still got his press access. That's interesting. So that's another way that they can do it is by getting rid of the access. When we just get the same stories. And so the monopoly is really important because that's what happens, you know, NPR or whatever, and everyone else just does a little variation of that original story, and it's disseminated down throughout all of the smaller ones. So it you look at corporations and they just want to make money, so they want to cut costs. So that's what they do. And this is the kind of journalism you get when your model is that model of just cutting as much cost as I can. You know, it's like McDonald's. It's the race to the bottom, you know. McDonald's dominate. Without a doubt, they dominate. But their food is trash. So this is the journalism that we get out of McDonald's doing journalism. That makes sense. They're making money though. Lots of it. I gotta get out of here soon. The Trump Justice Department recently deleted a long-standing study from extremism in the United States. This wasn't just an outdated statistic. It was a 2024 analysis from the National Institute of Justice that cited decades of data indicating far-right extremists 100 from the left since 1990. You know, 520 deaths compared to 100 from the left. How do they determine that anyway? So that's a question mark right there. There isn't just one-off finding. This isn't just a one-off finding. It's echoed by study after study on the real-world sources of online violence and radicalization. The research is clear. Most extremist violence, including attacks inspired and organized via digital platforms, comes from the right. From live streaming hate crimes to echo chambers promoting violence, online recruitment and misinformation have visibly fueled white nationalists and far-right movements. Now, after the tragic murder of Charlie Kirk, the administration is using the incident to rewrite history and point fingers at the left, blatantly ignoring mountains of evidence and deleting their own agency's work. It's absurd to watch those responsible for the rise in violence scramble to shift blame, cherry selecting facts, and weaponizing tragedy instead of accepting inconvenient truths. Now, this would have been great. It was great all the way till they said it's absurd to watch those responsible for the rise in violence scramble to shift blame. Suspended reality, and that's what I'm saying. So it is true. It's totally true that, you know, this most of this violence is coming from, what did he say? Not fueled by white nationalists and far right movements. Yeah, so most of the, they're talking about violence and radicalization. So, like, we know this. Anybody that's being honest with themselves and don't want to suspend reality knows that's true. Now, the part where they said it's absurd to watch those responsible for the rise of violence. So what are you saying? You know, are you trying to say that the present government is a white nationalist far right movement? Now, influenced by, yes, but you can't say that. You can't say that because it's the government. Okay, like it's too much going on. It's too many moving parts to say that. And when you say stuff like that, you are leaving the other side to turn you off, and then you said cherry selecting facts. The other side does this, definitely. And so what they hear, you're turning them off when you say this, because in their mind now they're like, it's partisan. It's just partisan, and it's pointing fingers on the other side. And that's what we're doing. That's the majority of what's happening. And both sides are doing it. And you're not going to win someone over to your side by doing that. Whatever side they're on already, they're not moving from it to the side. Self-inspection, looking at your own side is the only way to move people or whatever. And I hate this binary way of looking at everything. It's either them or us. It's either Republican or Democrat. It's either left or right. And that's what they call polarization. So nobody can hear you when you talk like that. So anyways, on the other side of it, it is suspending reality and on. Okay? If you want to be sane. The truth is the violence does come from both sides at the end of the day, but most of it is coming from a specific side. All of it is coming from the other side. Is a suspension of reality. I'm going to start going through some of these really quickly, and I'm going to get out of here.
Unfortunately,
there we go. The guy on the news was saying that we should just euthanize the homeless people, and it's just we're going in a direction where we're continuing to dehumanize groups, and like to the extreme extent. Like the way people treat homeless has been bad over time, but we got a fever pitch going on because of the politics and the rhetoric. So these groups are getting attacked, and it's because of the rhetoric, the dehumanization and the scapegoating of these people. I really dislike it. I really dislike how people act towards them. And then it's like a lot of the people in the United States are living check to check. Like they're a disaster away from being out there themselves. And so it's a criminalization of being poor, of not having resources, of not having money. And that's don't raise minimum wage since like 1997 or something like that. CEO pay has exploded to like thousands of times the amount of their average employee. Rent, price of, they said it was supply chain issues, and that's the reason why the prices of everything was going up because of COVID. Then COVID ends and the prices stay the same and then go up more. Meanwhile, we aren't getting paid anymore. They give you a raise at your job and it equates to like $40 a paycheck after taxes and insurance and stuff. Like it looked like they gave you a big raise, but it came to just, less than $100 a paycheck. And all these people are struggling. You want to fight crime, make sure everybody, that's really, really, really simple. Oh, we can't feed everybody. You look how much money you're spending on law enforcement. Gosh, the amount that these people are getting, it keeps on skyrocketing, man. It's crazy how that is. Anyway, so so make the people struggle. They slip and make some little mistake, trip over their foot. They get a ticket. They get a no insurance ticket, and then they lose their car. It gets impounded. They can't get to work, and then they get fired. Then they lose their apartment. Now they're a criminal because they ain't paying their, debts, their child support. Now the cops are looking for them. They got warrants. You know what I mean? Now it's hard to find more work. It's a cycle. And then you're going to just shoot these people. Look at this.
Here we are yet again, normal. I'm providing details on yet another multiple victim shooting in which 8 people have been injured by gunfire. This time, the people of Minneapolis deserve peace and safety. All residents of the city deserve that on their streets and in their neighborhoods and in their homes. And I know it's been a lot of violence lately, and we just want our community to know that we are not going to give up and that we will continue to fight so that every person in this city.
You take the resources that we're going to give you, or you decide that you're going to be locked up in jail. That's the way it has to be now.
Or involuntary lethal injection or something. Just kill.
Unfortunately.
It says Fox News Channel host for the execution of mentally ill homeless people in a discussion on the network last week, September 10, 2025. Kilmeade did issue an apology on Sunday, but the damage had already been done. 13 people hurt in 2 mass shootings in Minneapolis, 5 critically in 2 shootings that erupted over a span of 12 hours at homeless encampments in Minneapolis, with the city's mayor saying he wouldn't be suitable. And sadly, it's not surprising, Mayor Jacob Frey said in a news conference early Tuesday. Minneapolis Police Chief Brian O'Hara had a notorious homeless encampment in southeast Minneapolis in which 8 people were shot and an estimated 30 shots were fired. So they was brat, 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 brat. Here we are yet again in the aftermath of a mass shooting. This is not normal, O'Hara said. O'Hara said the shooting in the homeless encampment on South 28th nearby was approached by multiple people running and telling him that there was gunfire in the encampment. The officer exited the store and heard gunfire coming from the area of the encampment, O'Hara said. Upon arrival, officer found 5 people wounded, including 2 people, a man, why would they say that? 5 people wounded, including 2 people, a man and a woman. Okay, discovered inside tents suffering from bullet wounds to the head. Ooh. O'Hara said 3 other gunshot victims showed up at hospitals on their own. O'Hara said at least 4 of the victims had life-threatening gunshot wounds. The chief said multiple shell casings were recovered from the scene, leading investigators to believe that someone inside the encampment exchanged gunfire with the shooter who targeted the encampment. Oh, they popped back at him. O'Hara said that in addition to the shooting, a fire broke out in one of the tents while police were on scene, and that firefighters were called to extinguish the blaze. No arrests have been announced in the shooting. Man, I bet you they don't find these people, go unsolved. They're not going to look for them. They're not going to spend much resources looking for the people who did it because they don't have any value for the life of those people that was out there. And that's very, very, very sad. And so then that shows the rhetoric, right? The stuff that these people are saying, you know, respected by the community, respected by the establishment, or whatever. The people that are watching, you know, the authority, they see authority, and they're going to, you know, listen to it. And, you know, they might feel like they need to take things in their own hands. So you have to be, if you're a news anchor, you cannot say stuff like this. He's been on that show forever, whatever, makes a lot of money. I think he's the main guy for that show. It's him and the lady, but I think he's the main person. And he should be terminated. If another shooting happens, but see, no correlation, right? What's the correlation? One thing doesn't necessarily have to do with the other. Okay, let's keep on suspending. Why is Kilmeade still employed? That's what I said. Needs to be fired. Or at least another comment says, so is Fox going to get sued again? Another one. Stochastic terrorism is a form of political violence instigated by hostile public rhetoric directed at a group or individual. Unlike incitement to terrorism, stochastic terrorism is accomplished with indirect liability for any associated violence. Man, that sounds like freaking January 6th. Comments. It says Fox News said, what about the homeless? It says there was also a hanging of a homeless person in Mississippi shortly after Fox News said its statement. It was declared a suicide. We talked about that a bit earlier, but not in the context of, as far as the person being, unalive. And then it's easier for you to believe that they did it to themselves too. So you're like, they're homeless, they're unhoused. Life is hard. So they probably did it to themselves. Another reason to not really do an investigation from their perspective. We got enough going. We're busy.
September 11th, 2025, as law enforcement continued their investigation, county sheriff's office with his parents and a family friend. Mother stated that the following to police. Robinson's mother saw the photo of the shooter in the news and thought the shooter looked like her son.
Man, it's so symbolic, right? That September 11th. I don't know, something to that. I don't really like to go down those roads of those conspiracy theories. You know, I like to go by what we know is true. I mean, you can speculate or whatever, but I don't really like. But yeah, still, that's still really interesting. September 11th.
Robinson's mother called her son. He said he was at home sick and that he had also been at homesick on September 10th. Robinson's mother expressed concern to her husband that the suspect. Robinson's mother explained that over the last year or so, Robinson had more to the left, becoming more pro-gay and trans rights oriented. A biological male who was transitioning genders. This resulted in several discussions with father who have very different political views. In one conversation before the shooting, Robinson mentioned that Charlie Kirk would be holding an event at UVU, which Robinson said was a stupid venue for the event. Robinson accused Kirk of spreading hate. Robinson's father reported that when his wife showed him the surveillance image of the suspected shooter in the news, he agreed that it looked like their son. He also believed that the rifle that police suspected the shooter used matched a rifle that was given to his son as a gift. As a result, Robinson's father contacted his son and asked him to send a photo of the rifle. Robinson did not respond to Robinson implied that he planned. Robinson's parents were able to convince him to meet at their home. As discussed, this implied that he was a shooter and stated that he couldn't go to jail and just wanted to end it. When asked why he did, Robinson explained there was too much evil and Charlie Kirk spreads too much hate. He talked about Robinson's fan and convinced Robinson to speak with a family friend. Robinson's father's request, the family friend met with Robinson and his parents and convinced Robinson to turn himself in. The family friend spoke to police and reported telling Robinson sheriff's office to avoid police having to search his parents' home. The friend also asked Robinson if he had any clothes that were related to what he did. Robinson replied that he had disposed of the clothes in different areas. The roommate. Police interviewed Robinson's roommate, a biological male who was involved in a romantic relationship with Robinson. The roommate told police that the roommate received messages from Robinson.
Yeah, so I guess they're trying to. I feel like it's a narrative, but they want to make sure that it's understood that he was radicalized and went to the left or whatever, and it I guess, you know, it's important to the story because it was a political reason for their killing. So, and it's perfect setup, like teed up. It's teed up for the right and Trump to, you know, have an excuse to go after the left or whatever and say that the stuff that we've been saying is right. You know, the universities are radicalizing these kids, and you know, the whole transgender thing is having a negative impact act on our kids. So they go against Tyler Robertson, the man accused of assassinating Charlie Kirk. Utah County Attorney Jeff explained how investigators were led to Rob. According to Gay Robinson, 22-year-old Utah allegedly told his parents that he killed Kirk after his parents saw images of the suspect put out. The parents and family friend convinced Robinson to turn himself in on September 11th. Comments, it says, well, let's hear what Robinson has to say. Another one, good work by the parents. Cash can publicly thank them too. What is he talking about? Cute story. Another one. Always got to use 3 names. Lee Harvey Oswald, JFK 2.0. Another one. I thought Cash Bar Patel single-handedly. Another one. Guy cannot even read sentence in his mother's tongue out loud. Kids who needs enemies. Another one. Robinson was pro-gay for trans rights, but his actions harmed, not helped that movement. That's an interesting comment. But I don't think that, from what they're saying, that his motivation was to help the movement necessarily. He's just like, this dude is just, we got to get him off of here. What he say? I need him got. Yeah. This sucker think he could whoop me, and I. If you know. Bruh, if my kids, bruh, they know already. I'm calling, bro. I'm not, I'm not playing that game with you, bro. Or sis, whatever it is, bro. Like, man, if it's now, not whatever it is, I guess it kind of depends on the circumstance. But if you did something horrible like this, yeah, I'm turning you in, bro. I'm calling the people. Yeah, I'm calling the people, bro. I'm calling the people. I'm calling the folks on you if I know you did such and such and such. No, I'm sorry. I love you, but I believe in honor and truth and justice. Another comment, it says, only Dems will scream for gun reform and then shoot someone for their beliefs. RP Charlie. And this is one of those predetermined, okay, you're going to feel like I'm attacking you or whatever, but this is a predetermined, like every line of it. It's a copy and paste. And look, is it a real account? 0 followers. This is a bot. The narrative and to, make sure the other side gets some this should be, this is significant. So the bots are out. And, what do you think you're being manipulated? You know what I mean? Programmed. Okay. I'm finna get out of here. I know there's some more I wanted to do. It was something I really wanted to get to. I just don't remember what it was.
And what do you make of Pam Bondi saying she's going to go after hate speech? Is that, I mean, a lot of people, a lot of your allies say hate speech is free speech.
You'll probably go after people like you. Well, it's a form of hate speech. So maybe they'll have to go after you. Look, we want everything to be fair. It hasn't, but we're fixing it. We have right now the hottest country anywhere in the world. And now Washington, D.C. is fixed, and I fixed it. The mayor was fine. The mayor was just fine. Okay? The mayor had the sick city for many years. She's been mayor for many years. The one that fixed it was me and my people. And it is so safe, you won't be accosted. Washington, D.C. is safe. Now we're going to Memphis, where it's pretty rough, to put it mildly. And then we're going to have to go. A friend of mine.
And what do you make of Pam Bondi?
It says, breaking an insane moment. Trump confirms that he will use his power to compel Pam Bondi to go after people who ask him mean questions. We'll probably go after people like you because you treat me so unfairly. That's not exactly what he said. It sounded like a threat, though. It definitely sounded like a threat. And like I say, they're attacking journalism. Journalists. What did he say?
Saying she's going to go after hate speech. Is that, I mean, a lot of people, a lot of your allies say hate speech is free speech.
You'll probably go after people like you because you treat me so unfairly. It's hate. You have a lot of hate in your heart. Maybe they'll come after ABC. Well, ABC paid
democracy right there, you know. Y'all pay me, you know. The media has to take a certain amount of accountability for this, but you know, not getting any defense for Trump, but he's being real right there. You know, it's like y'all don't really care about hate speech, bro. Y'all making a killing off of it, you know, making all kinds of bread off of this, you know. So, but then he follows that up with, then this gives us a reason to go after the radical left. And this is all because of the radical left. We're going to go after the radical left. And we're going to go to, he's going to go to after that. So what happens though, you know, do they leave the, like, let's say he goes and cleans up Washington, D.C. or whatever, the troops and stuff. So do they leave the troops there or do they take them away? So, and then if violence, you know, goes up, if violence happens in Washington, D.C. after the troops leave, then does that give them a reason to send the troops back or whatever? Is the plan to have these permanently stationed troops in major U.S. cities? Like we have all these bases around the world? What kind of, you know, what does that mean?
For a form of hate speech. So maybe they'll have to go after you. Look, we want everything to be fair.
That's a threat.
And the radical left has done tremendous damage to the country, but we're fixing it. We have right now the hottest country anywhere in the world.
The hottest country anywhere in the world.
And remember, 1 year ago, our country was dead. And now Washington, D.C. is fixed. And
1 year ago, the country was dead. Like, So what is, I don't know. I guess it depends on what side you're on. You're gonna be like, it's been a major changes since last year. I don't see it. Man. My bills still keep coming. I'm still paying them. I'm still struggling.
The mayor was fine. The mayor was just fine. Okay. The mayor had the sick city for many years. He's been mayor for many years. The one that fixed it was me and my people.
It was me and my people. We fixed it. The mayor he's pretty good. Pretty good. We came right in and fixed it though. I did it.
It's so safe. You should take your beautiful wife tonight and have dinner down there. You won't be shot. You won't be accosted. DC is safe. Now we're going to Memphis, where it's pretty rough, to put it mildly. And then we're going to have to go. A friend of mine. And what
was the rest of that clip? I don't care enough to pull it up. DJT. I like that dude that does the memes where he's like gangster. One thing you can say about Trump, that dude is gangster. This clip has gone viral. Cory Booker and Kash Patel. There's something I wanted to do before I left. It's something recent. I can't remember what it is. Let's see. Hopefully it pops up.
I don't think you're fit to hand the bureau. But here's the thing, Mr. Patel. I think you're not going to be around long. I think this might be your last oversight hearing. Because as much as you supplicate yourself to the will of Donald Trump and not the Constitution of the United States of America, Donald Trump has shown us in his first term and in this term, he is not loyal to people like you. He will cut you. I pray for you. I pray for you that you can step up and defend your oath, defend the Constitution, and do a much better job of defending this country. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
The thing about Cory Booker is you could just, his performance is always there. Like you can see it. Like I'm not trying to say that he's not genuine. What I'm trying to say is that it's the acting part. Like it's like, he practiced this. He rehearsed this. Probably in the mirror in the bathroom in the congressional office or whatever. Maybe at his house or apartment, hotel. I guess the place doesn't matter, but that he freaking rehearsed this. And that part, I don't know. That's the thing about Cory Booker. You're not good enough to act it and make it look like you're not acting, regardless of if you're genuine or not. And so because of that, it takes away from what you're saying and its authenticity.
Information does not bring this country together.
False information. It was a I don't know. Maybe he was talking about something earlier here, but from that clip, Cory Booker, it's not stated in a way to say that it's fact. So I don't understand why you would start your argument that way. And it's like, I don't know, man, this is what they do. Like it takes things to a whole nother space. And that's one of the things I do not like about the discourse, because we can't have open and honest discourse without people making all these bad faith arguments and obfuscating and just detracting and distracting and putting up magic tricks and doing backflips. I don't know, hula hoops. I don't know, but stuff that's away from what we're talking about. Like, can we stay on topic? I know the music, right? It's kind of reflected in the music, right? The popular music of today and how it jumps from subject sometimes. I mean, but really good stuff, even with music, it stays on a topic and has a message and it has a story and it has a, parts that fit together.
If you want to work on bringing this country, it's my time, not yours.
My God.
If
You're
you want to talk about
dividing this country,
it is
I
my
follow
time.
you on your social media posts that
It is
tear
my
this country
time
apart.
to address
There should be a
your
unifying-
falsehoods.
Oh,
You are an
you can try
embarrassment
all
to the
you
division
want
in this country.
to not
Senator,
take
it is my
responsibility
time.
for what
You
you
had
have
your
said.
time.
Sir, you're
Your
making a
time is
mockery of this
over.
committee. Sir, you don't tell me my time is over.
You
The
know how
people
far
of New
we've
Jersey
come
tell me
since
what my
Utah?
time is.
Senator-
You can't lecture me.
You can tell me
Sir,
my time's over.
You may be the charge of the
I'm not
FBI,
going anywhere.
but I am not afraid of you.
This individual, he wants higher positions in politics, and I guess for him, that would have to be like minority leader or VP or president. I mean, what else? He has ambitions. So I think that's what drives this performance. But he's also genuinely got a problem with Kash Patel. You can clearly tell that. You know what I mean? It's genuinely got a problem with Kash Patel. And I feel him on that. And he was doing mad disrespectful. He didn't even let Kash Patel get out what he was saying. Like, he's taking up his time and cutting him off and talking over him. Mad disrespect. FBI Director Kash Patel went off on Senator Cory Booker after Booker accused Patel of failing as a leader of the nation's top law enforcement agency. Another comment that says the only thing Booker does is shout and rattle. Another one, The Legend of T-Bone Booker. This is the New York Post, by the way. It's always good for you to go back and look at that. Like, whenever I'm reading something, because I'll just be reading articles like randomly, and I don't even know who wrote it really. Like, I don't really be caring who wrote whatever. But the publication, I have to go back and look at that and be like, okay, wait. Which publication was this I was reading from? Because you need to, take that into consideration with whatever you're reading. Doesn't really matter left, right, or whatever, but you want to take in consideration the historical trends of the publication. I stand with Kash Patel, best FBI director. Another one, typical tantrum by a Democrat. I'm not being around, much longer. That I would not be surprised if that happens. Another comment. Booker failed as a mayor of Newark. Oh, that's a position you could do, governor, but it's like, who's more powerful, a governor or a senator? Okay, that's arguable. I don't know. I think I would go with governor. Yeah. Another comment. The greatest director of all time. Of all time. I love you. What do you say? I'm gonna let you talk. The greatest of all time. Man, this is This is talk of a cult. This is talk of programming. Unless it's just like, trying to be funny or whatever. Greatest FBI director of all time. It goes along with this. Greatest president of all time. Make America great again. Greatest country in the world. Man, that sounds like some. I don't know if people realize how it sounds, but I know there's all the parodies and all the jokes, all the memes. But how do people see it, though? Do they really take it in as like, how do you think the rest of the world sees us? That's a part that's crazy because, you have your perception of people from other countries, but you don't never, for us over here, I don't know about other countries, but we're never concerned about what other countries think about us, because it's like, of course, what we do is the best way. Of course, we do things the right way. Of course, we're like a civilized, democratic, nation of laws. Of course, of course, we're the best. Of course, everyone else needs to, get like us. Of course, we're the greatest of all time. Greatest country in the history of the world. Richest country in the history of the world. I wanted to do, or did I hit it? Subsidizing the oil industry. I'm gonna wrap on this story. What was Candace talking about? She was talking about this. Hold on.
When there is one lie, there's 20. There's no reason to lie. Bibi could have gone on Fox News and he could have told the truth.
Yeah, the conspiracy stuff. Like Netanyahu's comments were weird after the. That guy's like a ghoul. It says fossil fuel firms receive U.S. subsidies worth $31 billion each year. Study finds % return on investment. So, really, really simple. Like, you pay taxes. The taxes go into the system. The system is supposed to, provide roads and infrastructure and other programs to help support you as the taxpayer. So the taxes are supposed to benefit everyone, right? Make society better. We all pitch in a little, and it helps us as a whole. It helps all of us. Quality of life or whatever. Just to be able to function, have a functioning government or whatever. So we pay that money. And then they do stuff like give money to the corporations, and then the corporations making 30% profit on whatever the hell they're doing. How does that freaking help us? And you should be angry about this because the money it's like money laundering. It's going from your pocket into that dude's pocket. Dude already got a whole bunch in his pocket. He wants yours, $5. He already got billions. We want your $5. The U.S. currently subsidizes the fossil fuel industry to the tune of nearly $31 billion per year, according to a new analysis. That figure, calculated by the environmental campaign group Oil Change International, has more than doubled since 2017. It is likely a vast understatement due to the difficulty of quantifying the financial gains for some government support and to a lack of transparency and reliable data from government sources, the group says. Yeah, they tend to be fogging up everything. Like, what was it, like, person who came up with the jobs numbers and Trump was like, you're fired. The agency who does they was doing like a police database, the crime statistics, the people who collect data related to natural disasters and climate change. Like, you can go down the list and they're firing these people or disregarding the data, saying that it's wrong or it was manipulated. It's just sowing in this doubt to the point where you like, whatever numbers come out from the government, you're like, man, I don't know if that's good, or they're related to the government or they're funded by the government or whatever, or even other numbers, because everything is fudged and foggy. They're just these handouts pose a massive barrier to decarbonization, as the new report, which experts have long warned is urgently necessary to avert the worst consequence. That the climate change is not even real. So I don't know how you can't get through to these people. But regardless of how you feel about the decarbonization, or I think a lot of it is a money grab. That part of it I can agree with y'all on, but the climate change money grab related to green, the fossil fuel companies making 30% on profit after getting $31 billion from the U.S. government. 30% profit, can't they fund themselves with that 30% profit? The hell they need the $31 billion from us for? Comments. Let me finish the caption. It says, these subsidies allow for new production that would not otherwise occur, and the primary author of the new analysis. They also, to an enormous extent, go to lining the pockets of shareholders and investors in fossil fuel executives. That's where the money is going, period. Like, all of it on stream that's going to make some good money too. So I guess that makes it okay. The rest of us screwed. Among the biggest subsidies the U.S. offers oil companies, the report found, is a federal tax for overseas income against their domestic tax bill to avoid being taxed twice. So yeah, it's all about these tax loopholes, and people are like, oh, you could just use it yourself. Bro, there's no way for me to use this particular tax loophole, okay? Maybe it is. I could create a fake corporation or some shit and worry about the IRS coming, because they're coming. Because people like me are the ones that they go after, people that don't have a lot. Anyways, these loopholes are created for them, not for you. So that's not a fair argument. It's not cool either way. So you saying that, you could just use it too, is not the right thing to say. Close the loopholes. It's wrong. It's cheating. It's shady. It's robbing you. Like, stop making excuses for them. It's BS. Everybody should be upset about it. It doesn't matter where you know what I mean? It doesn't matter what side you're on. We should all be able to agree on that. It says can't protect forests, fund science, or invest in clean energy. They're meant to be because, I mean, like, you got to don't believe climate protecting the forests, right? Not, you know, having natural areas. That's good for the environment, good for the air. That's your bunker, maybe. I don't know, but you got to come out at some point. But the rest of us, or most of us, or all of us, really, we're walking around, we have to breathe air. So if the pollution is in the air, then when you want natural mechanisms to clean that up some, so you won't have to breathe so much of it, like, you're going to come outside. Can we protect the forests or whatever? Like, you know, when we say protect the environment, we're also talking about pollution, right? You want to have clean water to drink, right? Anyway, so that $31 billion could be going towards cleaning up the water or fixing the infrastructure. Nah, just give it to them so they can put it in their pocket. That's so crazy. Comments, it says corporate welfare for the wealthiest, and quotation marks. Corporate welfare. Socialism is only for corporations. And its sister industry, the plastic recycling love affair. It's money laundering. Lesson, it can really pay off big to buy politicians. Anyways, I'm going to wrap it, y'all. Peace and love. Thank y'all for joining. Thank y'all for listening.